Hi, it's Paul here from selfhelpforlife.com, and in today's video I'm going to talk about how to tame your internal negative voice. Now the first bit I'm going to talk about now is really key, and you may not have come across this idea before. So the idea is you are not your internal voice, or you're not your negative internal voice. This inner dialogue that you hear in your head, often chattering, often quite loud, is not really you. You're just the one that hears it. And that internal dialogue that you hear affects how you feel, affects how you behave, and it affects how you do things as well. But the real you is separate from that negative internal voice. That's the key thing. The real you is not that internal voice, and that's the key message I really want you to get in this video. The real you is something quite separate from that, and it's like there's two parts. There's you. You is like your awareness, your sense of identity, your core being. It's your ambitions, your goals, all those things you want in your life. That's the real you. And then there's this other part in your head, this negative internal voice. So this internal voice that's like a commentary of all the things you're experiencing in life. So all the things you're seeing, hearing and feeling, it's commentating on that as you go through life. So it's basically commentating on your experience of life. And it is almost like a sports commentary. You know, when things are going well, that voice might be quite quiet, it might be quite slow, but when something very exciting is happening, or something that makes you feel fearful in some way, or even physical danger, then that voice is loud and it's very fast. So just thinking of it like a sports commentator, really. And what that internal voice is doing is it's taking that experience of what you see and what you hear and what you feel, and it's manipulating it according to your beliefs, your sense of identity, and your sense of self-image, your sense of self-worth, that kind of thing as well. And when everything is okay, that voice can make you feel good. It can say quite nice things to you. It can say that I'm okay and everything's okay, and you feel good. And if the kind of things that internal voice is saying to you are not so good, then you begin to feel fearful and you feel anxious. So I'm going to give you some examples of this. So let's say you make some kind of mistake, or you say something you regret later to someone, something like that, or you do something poorly. Then that voice kicks in and starts to become very critical and starts to say things like, you know, you always make mistakes, or you're a stupid person, or something like that. Or maybe you're talking to another person, and rather than listening to that person, you're judging them in some way. So maybe thinking things like, oh, I don't like the way he's talking, or I don't like his mannerisms, or maybe you're thinking more, am I coming across well to this person? Does this person like me? All those kind of things. That's all that negative internal voice. And what's happening is you're listening to that and you're not really listening to that other person. So another example could be when you're thinking about a problem, or often overthinking about a problem. Okay, so you've got that problem on your mind, and you've got that voice that's just going over and over again how to solve that problem or how to deal with it. And often it's just going round in a loop, and you're just thinking the same things over and over again. Or maybe you're worrying about the future. So you're worrying about your health, worrying about work, how well you're doing at work, that sort of thing, or your finances, or worrying about just your overall security. You know, that voice can be continually in your head, you know, giving that negative dialogue about the future. And it's interesting because in a book by Michael Singer called The Untethered Soul, and I put a link to the book in the description below this video, he talks about this negative internal voice as being like your inner roommate. So just imagine this idea of having this roommate that's constantly criticizing and saying bad things about you. And I'll come on to that a bit more in a moment. Now the problem is that your mind engages or pays attention to this endless chatter, this mind noise. But the great thing is that now you know that mind noise, that negative internal voice, is not really you. You can begin to start to separate that voice from you. So you can start to separate that mental chatter, that internal dialogue, from the real you. And that's what I'm going to help you do in this video. And just by knowing the difference, you're going to start to separate the two now. So how do you tame your negative internal voice? Okay, well, the first thing is really to start to notice this voice inside your head. Just start to become aware of it, become aware of what it says, how it's saying it. And don't just blindly follow what it says. Remember, it's not you, it's just that negative internal voice. The next thing you can do is have an attitude of curiosity about it. So rather than just blindly accepting what it says, start to be curious about, the kind of thoughts that are coming to mind. Why is it thinking that way? And just almost just stepping back from it. Another thing you can do is think of it as a bit like traffic. So when there's a lot going on in your life and those thoughts are very quick and there's not much space between them, but at other times there's a lot more space between the thoughts. So just imagining it is like a level of traffic that's sometimes quite high and sometimes quite low, and you can actually start to visualize almost gaps in your thoughts and start to notice that mental space going on there. So that can help as well. One thing you definitely don't want to do is you definitely don't want to try and stop it. So the more you try and stop that negative internal voice, the more you try and stop that thinking, the worse it tends to get. Okay, it's that idea of what you resist persists. Okay. Instead, just remember that it's not you, it's not the real you, it's not who you are. And then you can just choose to let that go. So just choose to let it go. So like when you breathe out, just letting that thought go as you breathe out. And remember, that voice is useful when you're in physical danger. That's really what it's there for, is really to help you in that situation. But most of the time, we're not in immediate physical danger. So the next thing you can do is think of this negative internal voice as another person. Think of it as like your internal roommate. And then say to yourself, would I allow another person to talk to me in such a negative, such an impolite and such a terrible way? Would I really allow someone else to talk to me like that? And think about how you would react if someone did talk to you in that way. What would you do? Would you argue with them? Would you convince them that you're not really like that? Think of what you would do and start to do that with your internal voice, to start to challenge what you're hearing. And also ask yourself, is this what I want? So when you hear those kind of things, say, is this what I want? And the answer will almost certainly be no. I mean, who really wants a negative person like that in their head, telling them that they can't do things incessantly? Okay, so the next one, and this comes from the world of NLP, is to turn down the volume. So what you can do is you can imagine you have a remote control, and you imagine yourself slowly decreasing the volume of this negative internal voice until it becomes just a whisper, and then turning it off completely. And this is something that's very easy to do when you notice that voice quite loud, is just turning it down, and then switching it off. And also another thing you can do is change its tonality. So first, as you start listening to this negative internal voice, notice what it sounds like. Does it remind you of someone? Does it remind you of maybe one of your parents? Does it remind you of a school teacher? Does it remind you of somebody in authority? And if it does, if it's a very stern, very serious voice, then change it. Maybe change it to being a female voice rather than a male voice, or the other way around. Maybe change it to having a different accent. The one I like to use is imagining that it's like a naughty French accent. Something like that. That can be really nice. But whatever it is for you, just a different accent. So try that one. That's a really great one to do as well. And it can often make, even though what that voice is saying might sound very serious, if it's in a silly accent or in a very different voice, it sounds like it's less meaningful, it's less powerful. Now, another great idea is to change the statements from I statements to you statements. Okay, so when you say something like, I am so stupid, change it to, you are so stupid. If it's something like, I just can't do this, change it to, you can't do this. And a good way to do this is actually to write down those statements as they come, as you notice them. So have a journal, just start writing down those I statements and then changing them all to you statements. So what it kind of does is it kind of separates those statements from your identity in a way, because you're using you instead of I. It makes you feel more like it's that inner roommate saying it to you rather than saying it to yourself. And just that little change of language can really help neutralize the feelings and particularly the negative emotions that can come from that internal voice. And another great way to tame your negative internal voice is meditation. Now, meditation has many benefits, and I'll do another video on the benefits of meditation shortly. But the great thing about meditation is it's allowing your mind to focus on something. Now, that something could be your breathing, that something could be a guided meditation or hypnosis recording. But the whole idea is with meditation is that when you notice your mind wandering off from whatever you're focusing on, whether it's your breathing or some kind of guided meditation, then you can start to get into the habit of bringing your mind back to whatever it is you're focusing on. So when you're focusing on something, that negative internal voice will try and interrupt it. And it will try and interrupt it many times, especially when you start doing this. So the idea is with meditating is when you notice that happening, you can just gently breathe out and just allow that voice to fade into the background. And this will help you improve your concentration as well. And it will start to make the I part of you, the you that's not your voice, stronger. So I highly recommend doing about 10 minutes of meditation each day. As I say, you could do a guided meditation, or a really good one is actually just to focus on your breathing. This is great. So just focus on your breathing. And then as soon as you notice your mind has wandered, just allow yourself to go gently back to your breathing. And that will allow you to start to control that negative internal voice in your head. So that's a really good one. So these are a few different ways then to help you tame your negative internal voice. And remember that just by watching this video, you're going to start to look at that internal voice differently. Just the whole idea that you and your internal voice are two different parts. It's almost like a conversation you're having. So just knowing that, I know that just that awareness is going to help you have a different relationship with your internal voice. So if you enjoyed this video, please do leave a comment below and do subscribe so you receive future videos just like this one. And do leave a comment as well. I'd love to hear what you think. So thank you for taking this time to watch this video today. I look forward to sharing more great content with you very soon. Bye for now.